Happy April Fool's Day, everybody. No jokes in this video, but it is time for us to look at the solar generation here in the UK of my 9 kilowatt system for the month of March 2019. So I want to start off the video first of all by thanking everyone that's continued to subscribe and watch these videos, and an extra big thank you to those of you that continue to sign up to the Octopus energy tariff. A quick point, in case you're on the Octopus Go tariff like I am, so you've got the Economy 4, it should be obvious, but I thought I'd double check anyway. The tariff automatically changes to daylight saving times as well, so you haven't got to mess around with any of your devices. If you've scheduled those charging, it will still happen at the new time and daylight saving time. So fantastic. So in terms of March, it's been actually quite an interesting month. So a few things have happened in terms of the solar setup. So in general, the performance this month, well, in March, seemed a bit poor. I was thinking as the month kind of went through that generation had been okay, but I didn't think it was going to hit the predicted March numbers, but it kind of pulled it out of the bag in the last week. So the last week of March, I went the whole week off grid. It was fantastic. So obviously, when I say off grid, I've said this before, there's always an element of balancing that's happening on the grid. So as this power fluctuates in and out with solar generation, it does balance a little bit with the grid, but it's minimal. It's like less than a kilowatt a day. So fantastic. So that was great. And I also had a MyEnergi Zappi installed to be able to charge a Tesla. So now I have some more stats to share each month in terms of how much generation I'm getting. The surplus goes into the car. So yeah, I think that's it. Let's dive into the numbers and see how we did. Okay, so I've got the web page loaded right now. So as usual, we start off with the estimates. So my installer estimates for March was the system should generate 680 kilowatt hours, and my estimates were 660 kilowatt hours. If you remember from previous videos, the system tends to generate somewhere in between that. So I was kind of expecting something around 670 kilowatts. And last month, so February, was amazing. We generated loads more than the prediction, so that was fantastic. So we're looking for somewhere between 660 and somewhere between 680. So let's load up the system and see what we got. So for March, we generated 683.78 kilowatt hours. So like I said, I thought the month was going to be bad and it wouldn't meet the predictions, but it just crept over the kind of top end of the prediction. So really, really good. I managed to self-consume 93% of that, so that was 638.83 kilowatt hours, and export 44.94 kilowatt hours. So that's a little bit sad in terms of the export, but that's because I didn't have the Zappi installed earlier on, so still there's a lot of surplus that would go out, and yeah, I couldn't maximize it. So there was obviously some importing in the month, so 0.49 megawatt hours. So now I have the Tesla, I am increasing my energy consumption, and I'm charging that off during the Economy 4 tariff. And the hope is now, as we're heading into these better months like I did last week, in general I can kind of charge the car from my daily usage just from the surplus energy. So I can just top it up every now and then if I need to. So I think like last night I did plug it in and charge off the grid for the first time in the whole week, and I think it pulled about 29 kilowatt hours or something, so it's about £1.70 or something. It's nothing to worry about. So yeah, so in general the consumption for the month is 57% I generated on my own and 43% I pulled from the grid. So I'm hoping that April starts to see a climb back up to, you know, a really higher kind of self-generation, self-consumption. When I think back to when I got this system installed now 6 months ago, and I'll do a little video about that later on the channel, my energy usage was a lot lower, and my calculations were all based on a lot lower things. So now, actually, even though it might not seem obvious, now I'm consuming more in terms of I'm heating the water and I'm charging the car. These things actually accelerate the payback. So I am using more electricity, but I'm using electricity that's either generated by myself, is either on economy tariff, so it's costing me a third of the price. I'm paying less money in gas to heat the water. I'm not paying for petrol to run the car. So overall, this should accelerate the payback of the solar and battery system. So I won't really know until it's been a full year, and I can compare kind of previous years' costs around gas and petrol and everything to try and give an update on how well the system is performing. So that's where we are. So let's look at some of the information. So as you can see here, the beginning of the month, the weather wasn't so good, and you can see where these high kind of peaks are. This is really where the car has been charging up overnight, and that's where you see the biggest peaks, because I'm popping quite a lot of electricity into the Model S. It's got a 75 kilowatt battery, and obviously I'm not utilising all of it, but this month I have done a couple of longer trips, like a 200-mile round trip, which obviously increased my consumption because I want to charge the car to 100%. So, but then you see from like the 25th of March, which was last Monday, that's when we can see that there's hardly any importing going on at all, and I'm fully self-sufficient. So I'm hoping that kind of as we head through late spring into summer, this is going to be how things continue to be. Saying that, today's been a bit pants, but you can't have everything. So let's do what we do and kick through to the beginning of the month. So you can see here, I don't have the Zappi right now, so this is just the Powerwall charging up on economy 4, putting a little bit in, so not too much there. So what we got, an hour and a bit of top up, then it kind of goes down. Not quite sure what's happening in this lower half here, but then from 4 o'clock it completely stops charging. I think it's just doing the maintenance mode or something. It's probably got to 100% in the maintenance mode. We've gone through the day, and then we've got some consumption again. Next day, similar affair. So we're getting some peaks here and there, some good 6 kilowatts getting hit occasionally, and then charging the power up a little bit. Same again. Really little solar generation these days. Keep going through. More Powerwall charging overnight. Okay, this was a good day. So what was this? This was on the 5th. So a pretty good day. We got a good little bit of 6 kilowatt hour peaking happening. That's actually one thing I'm still trying to find out from SolarEdge, if I can get this information. So the solar system is a 9 kilowatt system. Obviously the inverter is 6 kilowatts. So I know that on really good days through the summer, I'm going to get a series of clipping. So what that means is when the system is generating closer to that 9 kilowatts, obviously, so I'm probably going to lose 2 to 2.5 kilowatts in terms of generation down to the inverter. Now, I won't lose that fully because you lose some in cabling anyway and in some efficiency losses. So, but I am interested to know, for example, if in the future SolarEdge bring out, say, an 8 kilowatt single phase inverter, and I'd like to know, can I utilize that or not? So yeah, we'll see what information they can provide about that. Okay, so we keep going. Okay, hardly any charging happening here, so you can see that a little bit of a maintenance cycle probably early in the morning of the battery to get up to temperature. Good solar generation, obviously be able to utilize a lot of it, not like super generation, but good enough to keep the battery ticking over, so we don't need to pull anything through to the night. Early hours of the morning, we're charging up again, but again, a little bit of good generation there on the 7th. Then we hit the 8th. Not a lot of usage on the 8th actually, and again small generation, but able to consume it all. And again charging into the Powerwall. And I think that's another thing for March. One of the other things I did is I stopped charging the water on a boost cycle on economy 4. Started using gas at the same time as the heating was running because I think it'd be more efficient. But now we've switched back to, well, I say switched back, now it's heating from the surplus. I'm still not using the boost timer, but the surplus is heating the water. So keep going through 10th, some good generation peaks there. This is where you're starting to see that I've got surplus again. So as much as possible, we don't want to see this green. We want it all to be in either the Powerwall or in hot water or in the car. Again, more green. A couple of spikes here on the 12th. Okay, and I think it was the 11th, I think it was maybe the 11th or the 12th that I had the Zappi installed. So this is where you can see now a much higher peak, up to 11 kilowatts. So I've got 7 kilowatts going into the car when I'm using the fast charging mode on the Zappi, and then the variant or the extra on that is the Powerwall charging up. So we see that a few days now as we go through with the car charging. So the car was just charging its own there, which is about 7. Got the car and the Powerwall charging there, then just the car. And again, I'm not quite sure what's happening here, but these little spikes happening early in the morning, because they should be getting powered by the Powerwall that's obviously full at this time, or at least has charge in there. Keep on going, 15th. So we're just seeing the regular theme. Now this early morning high usage in terms of charging the car and the Powerwall. Waiting for us to get into the good times. Here it comes. Okay, so the charts always look a bit strange when the car's been charged. So the car charged overnight along with putting some energy into the Powerwall here. Then you can see this really nice starting curve of the solar all the way up to basically 6 kilowatts, so 5.926 kilowatt hours, and it just kind of clipped it there for quite a few hours. So basically kind of from like 8:15 pretty much all the way through to 12 o'clock it was in excess of 6 kilowatts. The system was generating in excess of 6 kilowatts, but obviously we can only utilize that much. But look at all that excess going there. So that's, if I'd known that we were gonna have such a nice day, I wouldn't have charged the car, because I could have basically zapped it all in there from solar surplus. Going into the next day, so now I've kind of left the car unplugged at night because I don't need it to charge off the timer. I'm trying to maximize everything I have in terms of generation to charge the Powerwall and do the heater and the water and everything. And this is now what's happening. So you can see that's a really kind of decent curve to start with. Some good cloud coverage coming in and out on the 25th, but a really good day of generation there. 41.37 kilowatt hours, which is pretty awesome. And similar again, not too bad on the following day. And you can see here, so we've obviously got these little bursts when there's a little bit of cloud cover going over here, which is why it's a bit spiky, which is why we get the 1.25 kilowatt hours of import. But really it's just the balancing, it's not really noticeable in terms of utilization. Another good day in terms of being able to do everything we need to do. Not quite sure why I've got this odd surplus here. That should have gone into the car or something. Here again, another good day. You can see this complete flat line clipping at the top. Again, where the system's generating over 6 kilowatts, so it can only utilize 6. Again, another good day, and you can see here a bit of surplus again that isn't being utilised for some reason, but again, good generation. Not so good a day, but again, still not doing anything on the economy 4, so just living off solar 100% to charge the Powerwall, heat the water, everything. And 31st, which brings us to the end of the month. Again, no charging of the car or anything. Everything is happening off the surplus, or the solar surplus and solar generation. So a really good month. One thing that I have now changed into April, and I might actually change it today or tomorrow. So I had the system set up. So what would happen basically is obviously the solar powers the house, then it charges the Powerwall, and then I thought I'd set it to have the eddy charging the hot water first, then after that heat or charge the car. But I've actually got confused in my settings there. So the eddy is the master and the Zappi is kind of like the slave, and I assumed that kind of meant that the master was priority 1 and the Zappi was priority 2. But actually it turned out both of them were priority 1. So what was actually happening was it was trying to balance the power to the hot water and to the car. So in some ways it's actually quite good, because it meant the car was charging a bit and the hot water was heating a little bit. But over the weekend and during the week when the kids are being bathed and we're using the showers and everything, it was getting noticeable towards the end of the week that not quite enough hot water was being generated. So that's what made me look into the system and realise, well, why are these two things charging? You know, the car should only be charging when I've reached max temperature on the water. And that's when I realised that both of them were set to priority 1. So I've now changed that. I think I did that on Friday. And so now the hot water is getting all of that surplus originally, and then little bits after will go to the car. So the only downside of that is that the car last few days hasn't really got much charge at all. It's like a kilowatt or something. So obviously that's not going to be really great for me, and then I'm going to have to top that up either from the Powerwall or pull from the grid, which is fine. And we'll wait and see what happens in the summer, because obviously there'll have to be much more surplus solar. But what I'm thinking is, like today's a good example. I've put, I reckon, about 4 kilowatts back into the grid, because after the hot water finished heating, there was it started off about just under 2 kilowatts, then trickled down to about 1.3 kilowatt hours over a long period of time. And an EV can't utilize anything less than 1.4. So what then that means is this 1.4 is just flowing back into the grid and I can't use it. So I'm thinking I might experiment and change it back round and have the car charge first, and then after that have the hot water charging. Now the only problem with that is if I've been on a long trip, then the car will literally take all of it and there'll never be anything left for the hot water. So I've got to try and work it out. But the reason why it kind of makes sense is, whereas a car has that 1.4 kilowatt hour minimum requirement to do some charging, the hot water does not have any minimum. So even if there's 0.1 kilowatts of surplus, it will apply that to the element in the immersion tank and try and do some kind of heating. So we'll see how things go. I'll make those changes, I think, and see how things perform, and can let you guys know in next month's video. But there we go. So that's kind of where we're at, and I can share a little bit of information with you as we finish up in terms of how things worked. So in terms of the Powerwall, 340 kilowatt hours of electricity or energy went into the Powerwall. Obviously some of that was from economy 4, some of it was from solar, and out of that I was able to pull 295 kilowatt hours. So it's about 87-ish% efficiency. So as in all AC systems, you get some losses, both with the electricity going in and what you get out of it. And again, Tesla say 90%. So I'm still bordering around kind of what they expect it to be doing. And then if we look for the water, let's see what we got here. Okay, so 64 kilowatt hours of energy went into the water in March, which is a pretty good and decent number. And then finally, if we look at the car, 38.97 kilowatt hours was from solar surplus, which equated to 75% of my energy consumption in the car, and then 12.85 came from the grid. So that's still pretty good in terms of, so 75% of my motoring was done all from solar electrons as opposed from the grid. So thanks again for watching. I hope these videos are helpful and somewhat interesting. People seem to watch them and give good feedback and leave comments, so thank you very much. And next month we will talk about the April statistics. Thanks for watching this video. A thumbs up would be really appreciated. If you're interested in other geek type videos, please consider subscribing to Spectrum Geeks. Why not also follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And before you leave, why don't you check out one of these other videos that may be of interest. Thanks again for watching.